Okay. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me. For everybody who is watching, Sarah is our teacher extraordinaire here at Schoolio who does the student success plans. So we're going to talk about student success plans and how awesome they are. First, Sarah, do you want to give us like a little intro, your background,
Okay.
your color, all the good stuff?
Jump on in.
Yeah.
So do you want me to start how I found you guys?
Let's start with your origin story. How
Okay.
did you become Sarah?
How did I become Sarah? So way back in 1996. Well, in terms of education, my educational journey, I went to the University of Toronto. I did my Master's of Education there. And then from there, I joined a private school in Oakville, and I had an awesome experience there teaching kindergarten. And then from there, I moved to England, where I was working as a cover teacher in the public system. And I was looking for a bit more connection with students. So I went online, and Schoolio popped up as an awesome homeschooling platform. And the more I read about it, I needed to get involved. So I started sending messages to you, and you responded and you found a spot for me. And I'm feeling awesome about student success plans and all that they can do for homeschooling families.
That's awesome. Yeah, you sent us like a cold message to the email and just like, I love you guys and I want to work with you and do anything.
Yeah. And then you're like, would you like to do this? I was like, yes. I don't know what it is, but I'll do it.
No, you have the best energy. Like we love having you around. So tell us a little bit about the student success plans. What are they and how do they work?
Okay. So when you sign up for Schoolio, I know that a lot of people coming in probably don't have experience with homeschooling, or even if you do have experience with homeschooling, having a student success plan kind of gives you peace of mind with how your year could go. And you fill out a quiz that we send you. And from that quiz, I pull information about if your child has any neurodivergence, if that needs to be taken into considering when planning, if they're above grade level or below grade level. I say grade level like this because developmentally it doesn't matter where you are, and that's what's so great about Schoolio. I could give you grade 4 math even if you're grade 6, if that's what you need, just for developmentally. And then with the student success plans, what's so great about them is you can also put in interest-based electives, which I think is amazing. And it just gives opportunities for students to really dive into subjects that they're invested in and interested in and practice basic skills like literacy and even math within those courses.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think a lot of people who come to Schoolio are so they might be homeschooling for the first time and they're a bit overwhelmed about how to schedule and what to pick and all that sort of stuff. Or they have been homeschooling, but they haven't found that like successful feeling, which is why they're switching curriculums, right? So do people have to do a student success plan?
No, you don't have to do a student success plan.
You're like, but please do, because I love it.
I've been like looking at the format of the student success plan. They give you the weeks where you like the duration of time that you could be spending on a specific course, but that's so flexible. Like the base plan is amazing. Even as like a teacher who had to plan the whole year when I was coming into a grade, being an outsider and giving a parent the equivalent of what I wish I had as a teacher for the year, it takes the stress and away from it. I feel like just having it there in front of you and knowing that you can tweak it and change it and completely throw it out the window if you wanted to, or shift it around, just having the basic plan. So you don't have to, but why not have it as an option?
Yeah, exactly. So it gives the parent like this idea of what your year could look like.
Yes.
And you can follow it to a T.
Yes.
If you are like really unsure or you really love the plan. And you can also like swap things out or change the order or do whatever you want, right?
And what I think was awesome with siblings, when I found that sibling plans were coming in as well, it's really great to align the programs so that the electives can be aligned so you can work collaboratively together on them, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, is that we do get sibling ones come in a lot. And there are lots of, because we try to have our electives grade ranges. So it'll be like, this is like a grade 4 to 6 or whatever, which means if you have a 4th grader and a 6th grader, they could both do it. Even if you had like a 3rd grader and a 5th grader, they could both do it, because you can always just sort of tweak the activities a little bit as needed. So that's awesome. I'm going to see if this works.
Ooh.
Lizzie will blur out the name of the student. But this is what a student success plan looks like. So we give you, you fill out the survey and you tell us all about your child, what their interests are, what their strengths are, where they might be struggling, and basically anything you think that we need to know. And then Sarah takes all of that information for your one and only kid and makes a custom plan just for you. So this is like, it's hyper personalized because you filled it out just about your kid, and Sarah's just looking at your kid when she does this, and she knows all of the courses that we have in the Schoolio library. So then we'll break it out and give you this like recommendation on frequency. Of course, you can change that. Some people do science like twice a week. Some people want to do it like 4 or 5 days a week if they love science. So that's just a recommendation. And we have put in how long they'll last you if you're doing it the recommended frequency. So then you get that whole thing plotted out for you.
And what I love about the note section too is if, say, a parent says that their child has ADHD, I can put in strategies that I've used in the past that I found have really worked that they probably might already know, but it's reassuring to hear that they're doing the right thing for a specific type of neurodivergence.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I was doing them before you started doing them, and there were a lot of like very common issues that people were having, or I don't know if issue is the right word, but like struggles or objective for their student. I sort of see the same things over and over again, which just means that you're not alone. All of the parents are worrying about the same things, essentially. What are some of the most common struggles that you see mentioned in your surveys?
I find the one that keeps coming up is writing being an area of need. And that is so common. And I feel like a lot of parents get caught up with wanting their children to be at grade level for writing. But I think that whatever writing you can get out of your child is going to be the most beneficial if they're engaged. So if you find that the language courses are very heavy with writing and they're not as engaged in language, that's why I think the interest-based electives are so awesome, that you can take those main topics from language and combine them with the interest-based learning. So that instead of having to write about a specific thing that they're not engaging with, the main goal of Schoolio is engagement and like getting kids excited about learning and not being discouraged because they're not interested. An interested child is an engaged child is one who's excited about academics and is going to flourish. So with the one thing that I found was writing being a big area of concern, I would say just take the pressure off it, do less questions, or take extra time if you need to, take more breaks, or really pull on those interest-based electives to practice your writing skills that you've learned in those courses.
Absolutely. I tell people the same thing all the time with the writing, where it's like, you can alter, like, this isn't school, you can alter any of the content. So if they're supposed to be writing, you know, something in their language arts strand, but you want to make it the social studies that they're really into and make it that theme, you can just alter the theme. Or you can, like, some days if my kids were struggling with having a lot of writing and they were getting really burnt out, like if their social studies or science had a lot of writing tasks in it, we would just skip language arts that day. because writing is writing. All writing leads to improvement. And so really, as long as they're doing something every day, they're getting better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even the oral part of language is so important too. So if you find that students are really pushing against like physically writing with pen and paper or like typing even, doing like little YouTube videos or podcasts to answer the questions is a great way of them practicing their oral skills and also like gaining confidence in talking and presenting. And it also is just, you're getting more out of the lesson rather than having them sit there and be frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
To explore like and be creative with their answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always talk a lot about like is getting a love of reading for our kids. Like we want our kids to love reading. Love of writing is also important.
Yeah.
Many kids and adults think that they hate writing because they weren't successful at it in school, right? So you don't want it to be that forced thing.
No.
And it's hard to find balance. I had this problem with my daughter who hated reading when she was young. She's dyslexic. Where it's like, I want you to practice, but I also don't want to force you so that you come to hate reading, right?
Yeah.
So at some point we just had to sort of like take breaks from practicing, even though like I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm doing a terrible homeschooling job because she's not practicing reading.
Yeah.
But you got to find that balance. And the same goes for writing, right? If you're always forcing it and they always are resisting, then they're going to hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there any other like common challenges people come up with?
I find that attention, specifically like ADHD, but you don't have to be diagnosed.
Mhm.
Like I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but if the shoe fits. But attention I feel like is a big one, and especially I feel like being in your own environment and being surrounded by distractions and other things that you want to be putting your attention to, making learning engaging is the number one thing that you could do with attention difficulties with students. So prioritizing maybe the interest-based electives to get them kind of hooked in,
Mhm.
and then maybe start your day with that, and then do language or math ones that they maybe will sway with their attention. Also, I found that these are just things that worked in the classroom for me that I think any parent can use at home, even if your child doesn't suffer with or have to deal with attentional things. But I had clocks that were like visually showed how much time was dedicated to a specific area. So you can use clocks, you can use movement breaks, you can do context switching, which is really good. Like with certain students, I would have them work on a chunk of work for math, and then I would pull them and do a language program right after. And it was context switching. It's for some kids is the worst thing in the world, but I found for kids with ADHD is the best thing ever, especially if they're not fully engaged in something. If they're fully engaged, they'll sit there for 2 hours and want to do every single question. Yeah. But you find that their attention is swaying. Do math for 10 minutes, switch it up, do language for 20 minutes, switch it up, do an activity, come back to the math. I found that was useful as well.
Yeah, that's a really good tip for, we should actually do another entire podcast on tips from teachers for neurodivergency.
Yeah, I love that.
Because you were talking about doing the interest-based ones first, and that's like the backwards rewarding for ADHD, right? Because ADHD, you don't have enough dopamine, so you're dopamine seeking. Yes. So we have a tendency with kids to be like, if you get all your math done, then we'll do something fun. But then they can't focus on the math, and it's not like a matter of willpower. They literally can't. But if you do the reward first, so you do the thing that they're interested in, thing they're engaged in first, then they get all the dopamine, and then that allows them, that gives them the ability to concentrate on the thing they're not interested after. So yeah, so with ADHD, it's like fun things first.
Yes.
Then the hard things after.
And what's interesting with ADHD as well is that they take criticism. Students with ADHD take criticism so much worse than kids without ADHD. So if they are not getting something and you say one tiny thing about them not getting it, it will. But so it's just positive reinforcement. Even if they do half a question, it's like, that was awesome, great engagement, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like positive reinforcement.
Rejection sensitive dysphoria, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I have ADHD too.
Yeah.
So
Can
I
you
know
both of us?
things about myself, all the things you learn about yourself as an adult. Yeah. Awesome. So the last thing I wanted to ask you before we sign off is grade levels. When I
Okay.
hear people say they're below grade level or they're above grade level, most of the time these are kids who have just left the public school system. So what do we think about grade levels?
I think grade levels are a great way in schools for teachers who have classes of 30 to kind of see where their students fall so that they can base their curriculum around their class of 30. I think when you're homeschooling with your own child, you can take the grade levels and throw them out the window because they do not matter. Being at a grade 2 reading level does not matter if you are in grade 4, because if I try giving you the grade 4 curriculum and you're not ready for it, that's not doing anyone any favors.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you the grade 2 just because it's labeled grade 2. It doesn't matter. It's just a reading program. And if you are successful in that, you get confidence in yourself, you'll just get better and better and better and better. Quicker, faster. That's what I always say. I say go slow to go fast. That's what I would say to all my students. I don't want to put you in something where you're going to be so overwhelmed that you'll just disengage. Let me give you something that maybe is a bit below your level anyways, so you can get confidence and you could be creative in that, and then we'll bring up the level gradually.
Yeah, absolutely. And all progress is progress, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't, like, parents put a lot of pressure on themselves to have their kid at grade level. First of all, in a school, in a classroom of 30 kids, none of them are all at the same grade level. So much mixture, especially post-COVID. There's like probably 5 or 6 grade level representation in one classroom. So don't even worry about keeping up with public school, because you're keeping up with what? You're keeping up with such a huge range, right? And don't put pressure on yourself to try and, like, we have to cover 2 grades in 1 year or 3 grades in 1 year to get them up to grade level. Don't worry about that, because that's just gonna, like you said, overwhelm you, and leave you really, like, disengaged because you feel like it's an impossible task, right? Start where they are and make progress. And if you see some progress, then you're winning. And that's all there is to it, right? Like, nobody says you have to be done school when you're 17, just because the school system does, right? Like, we all keep learning forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like setting your student up for success.
Mm-hmm.
If that looks different from one kid to the next, then that's why you are doing this program, because it's supposed to look different.
Yeah.
Education is not cookie cutter, but that's what it's turning into in the public system, sadly. But that's why you've chosen to go away from that. So you get to make it what you want it to be. And I love that with even the social studies and like history or science courses, if it says that it's grade 3 and your child is so against learning about soils, they couldn't care less about soils, don't do the soils. It's okay. You can choose a different science that they're going to be really engaged with.
Do pirates instead, like. Yeah, and if it's low too, like if you have a 7th grader who's super into pirates, even though that's like, it says grade 3, like, who cares? Just do it. They'll read the content and they'll be interested. And if it inspires them and engages them, they'll go find more, like they'll get more advanced stuff on their own, or they'll just enjoy themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're still learning. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for being our teacher who does all the student success plans. There are so many kids out there and who are learning based on your recommendations, and so many parents. We get lots of comments from parents about how helpful and amazing the student success plans are. So thank you so much for being on the team and doing that, and for coming and chatting with me today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. See you later.